This is my measure phase for Dr. Joyner's 575 food science class of my Six Sigma project. My goal is increasing my usable vocabulary. So in recap from last time, I want to increase the words that I use day to day. And so with this, I've tried doing this before, and I tend to memorize lots of words but never actually use them, and so I don't integrate them into my vocab, and they're forgotten. So why I want to do this is to build my confidence in my abilities with the English language, and then to feel more comfortable expressing my ideas and give me more options to express those ideas to people. So with this, my goals from last time are to learn 15 new words each week and 150 new words between the two implementation periods, the measure and then the analyze phase. So 60 new words in the measure phase. The idea or the procedure that I made was for 5 days of the week to learn 3 new words each day and use those words each day that I learn them, and then to review those words the other 2 days of the week from previous weeks and from that week. And then also to keep a vocab journal of things that I've done in regards to who I use the words with, how I use them, and if I use them correctly. And so with this, I had 3 quantitative metrics that I used, or measurements that I used. As I go through these 3, I'll list what they are, how I collected them, and why I used them. So number 1 was the words memorized per day. So this is important because I have to start somewhere. I collected this by marking off on the list that I got the words from, that I memorized those words. And I use this because I have to start somewhere, and without memorizing words, I can't use new words, and I won't get anywhere. Number 2 is words used per day. And I collected this from logbooks that I kept of when I used the words. And so this is important because this is the goal, is to actually use these words, these new words, and integrate them into my vocab. And then number 3 is if I wrote down in my vocab journal, and so I collect this by just counting the number of journal entries. And this is important because it helps tie everything together and keep track of how I use the words and when I use them. And by tying all 3 of these together, these metrics, I can work towards my goal of increasing my usable vocabulary. And so the measurements that I made are in this check sheet setup. The first week and most of the second week I didn't do so well with writing in my journal, but as I improved with writing in my journal, I noticed that I was more motivated, and the numbers got a lot better after that point. I analyzed a little bit from the data that I have and used some basic quality tools to do so. So with this, I'll start with a process flow. And so this sets up how each of these steps feed into each other. And so I had to memorize words, which then fed into using those words. And with my journal, I could keep track of how I use those words. And then I would review those words to keep them in my mind and fresh, which would lead to increasing my vocab, which is the goal. And then on top of this, I added a cause and effect diagram, or fishbone chart. And so there are causes for why I wasn't able to complete or finish each of these steps in this process flow, and then sub-causes, potentially. And so the components that feed into this are the blue ones of time and prepared word lists for memorized words. And so as you notice, time is important for all of it. And in the bottom, for memorized words, I needed to find good words. I needed to prepare a list. I noticed if I went day to day but didn't prepare a list for multiple days, I tended to go up and down as to remembering to actually keep my goal. In regards to use words, I needed to create opportunities and to have confidence, and that was kind of an inhibitor, is not having confidence, and then also to remember to use the words while I was talking. In regards to my journal, I needed to prepare to write, and one of those sub-steps was to make sure my journal was accessible. If it wasn't accessible, I was lazy and didn't write in it. And then to review words, of just remembering what they meant and how to use them correctly, and a subset of that is the GRE lists certain definitions, not always the most prominent definition of that word, or the most common, and so to look up alternate definitions, and it could be different, which all leads into my goal. And so this helps me decide what steps I can improve on and how I can improve on each of these steps in this process flow to reach my goal. So the next thing I had was a Pareto chart, which reinforces what we just learned from the process flow. There's the vital few and the important many that we talked about in class. In the bottom you have the non-GRE words, not part of my project to learn non-GRE words, so it's here. The words along the bottom, or the things along the bottom, are causes of not reaching my goal. And if you notice, from descending order, not journaling, not using words, not memorizing the words, if you are in reverse order from what they were in the process flow. And so the Pareto chart just proves that they build on each other, and it's important for each one in order to get to my goal. So with this, an overall result, I did much better than what I had done previously before I enacted this goal. And that is, I actually improved from almost nothing. However, I did fail. So 12 days I succeeded in reaching those three goals, and 16 days I failed, which, although I improved, it's kind of depressing to know that I failed over 50% of the time, around 58%. I noticed some trends though. One is that the days I didn't use my words, I was less likely to write in my journal. I had a hard time memorizing on a 8x11 notebook, and also if I didn't start the day with vocab, I would procrastinate and I would cram at the end of the day, and those words wouldn't stick in my mind as easily as if I'd started in the morning. So for a future timeline, I've completed the define phase and measure phase, and now I'm moving on to the analyze phase and improve phase. I'll be using the same procedure and collection of data that I did previously in the measure phase. The steps that are going into this phase are: one, to analyze the data and determine how I can improve it, which will be this week, and then to implement that improved plan, which will be middle of October to middle of November, and then to analyze those trends and to figure out if there was a change by improving and making these changes in this goal and enacting a Six Sigma plan. So that would be November 20th to 22nd, and then prepare for my oral presentation for the analyze and improve phase, which is then due November 27th, and then prepare for the final project. Overall, because I want to extend this beyond just this, I'll reevaluate the plan at the middle of December, and did I reach my goal, and how can I improve that? In closing, some things, even though this is not an analyze phase, some things I want to focus on are: one, not using a notebook to keep lists of my vocab, so use note cards, I think would help improve and keep them close to me, and then use 2 journals so that I can keep one with me and one at my bedstand. And with that, I close and ask for any suggestions, and thank you for your time.